Hi, welcome. You are joining me for this week's episode of Princess Uninterrupted, the podcast. I'm your host, Allison Ziggy. What a week it has been. I've made many huge changes in my life lately, and it's resulted in things that I've been manifesting for an incredibly long time finally coming in. And the shift wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Painted a picture of my last year of how there were moments of struggle and there were moments of doubt and there were things that I really had to overcome. And I was in this place of just showing up every day and making videos, and it almost felt like a checklist box item. Somewhere along the way, I really fell back in love with creating, and I fell in love with creating TikTok videos specifically, but I also fell back in love with sharing my life online, and creating without expectation is the only way that I can put it. I created a healthier dynamic in my life where I was able to just share and help people from the goodness of my heart, as opposed to needing it to mean something or needing it to be anything more than that. I knew that there were some people on TikTok who had been struggling with things, and so I was like, okay, let me share my story. And it came from this genuine place where I knew that sharing my story was going to help people. I know that can sound cheesy. I've heard that a lot along the journey, like service the center of everything that you do. And I touched on this in the last episode. But that really was the shift, when it was like where you're giving without any expectations of anything coming in. And the reason that I think this works is just because it's very clean energy. I listened to this old podcast episode that I had recorded. It was the first episode that I had ever recorded. And in this first episode, I just talk about some of the darkest days of my life, which I know that I've talked about some of the challenging times that I've had recently, but the only reason that I was okay through everything that happened this year and last year was because of the hardship that I faced back in 2019. And in 2018, I'm going to be writing about this on my Substack. Make sure to check it out. Writing's my favorite form of art. I was misdiagnosed as bipolar. I had a manic episode. It was induced by a gummy, a weed edible. And if I look back, it was a very spiritual experience. So in the video that I made, I described it as spiritual psychosis. That felt like a true description, I suppose. I think sometimes there aren't really words to convey what happens when we go through these things. It felt like an initiation. It felt like, in some ways, that version of my life ended back then. Everything I knew about the world changed. Everything I thought I knew about the world was no more. I just felt so humiliated at the time. Like, I felt like I had this vision. It felt like I got the download for everything that was ever going to happen for the rest of my life. And then nothing went according to plan. I was doing a visualization of thinking about like some of the things that I'm creating and I'm manifesting. And I was just like, you can still doubt yourself when you get like a blueprint handed to you of here's who you're meant to be and what you're meant to step into. And I felt like I got that with my vision for my brand. From the beginning, I've said like the calendars and the planners, and that always felt so true for me. But felt like I was just doing this and talking to an echo chamber. And for so long, based on my own subconscious limitations, I just believed that nobody cared about what I had to say. What I had to say wasn't important. There were people who were better than me. There were people who knew more. And once I started to release that conditioning and release those lies, and what started it was when I started creating without expectation on TikTok, I was able to receive comments from people who just said this was exactly what I needed to hear right now. That felt like enough. That felt like enough of a reason to continue to show up. It was just something about receiving the comments when people were like, this is exactly what I needed to hear at this exact moment. It made me feel so connected to the universe. And I really want to emphasize, like, I understand that that's still an external validation and confirmation, but it still felt like genuinely it was more coming from the goodness in the heart. It feels nice to receive the external validation and to know that it's helping people, but I know that without receiving anything externally. I can feel energetically, because of the intention that I put into this work, and like I'm recording this so that this helps someone. Even if nobody says that, I know that's the case. When I made the video that ended up going viral for me, it was from this place of, I know someone who is in rock bottom right now will hear this and it will really help them. That was like the only expectation. I didn't need anything. I wasn't doing it to get a client. I wasn't doing it for any reason other than I knew the pain of what I had felt in that moment. And I knew that by sharing my experience, I had an opportunity to help offload that for someone. By sharing my energy and my experience, I was able to help somebody transmute their own energy. and release these heavy things. And that's something that I didn't have until I did. So in this misdiagnosis journey, it was a really dark period of time in my life. And I talk about it in the episode that I'll just include a link to it so that you can listen to it. But something that I'm really reminded of through this work, I definitely talk about this in my writing, and I'm about to release like the story in the book. But I'm constantly reminded of this sensation of like sleeping for 12 hours every night, and the only time of day I looked forward to was 9 p.m. because it meant that I got to go to bed. I was so uncomfortable in my own body and my own life where I just felt, I don't even just want to say lethargic, I just felt so hopeless, and I felt so lost, and I felt so stuck, and I just felt so bleak, and I just felt so embarrassed, and it was like the heaviness of what I was experiencing was enough that I didn't even enjoy being awake. I didn't have thoughts of self-harm. It was more of like this overwhelming just sense of apathy and just not possibly seeing how things could ever get better. And that finally shifted for me when I discovered manifestation. And I got weird comments online when I described it this way, and I'm not trying to like, this isn't like positioning manifestation to people who don't believe it. I think that you could use any word that resonates for you to describe this, but just this idea that there's no reality where your past is as good as it's ever going to get. As soon as you reconnect to the present, you can always create anew. You're never too far gone to create within the present moment. Sometimes I would find myself missing that nostalgia of believing that anything was possible. I think back to when I was in college and that sensation of just feeling like your entire life is ahead of you. And sometimes it can feel like that's no longer the case as you get older. Like for whatever reason, your dreams die, things become impossible. There's certain things that as you get older, no longer are possible. If I wanted to be an Olympic athlete, I probably couldn't. But I also think that there's always more available for you than you think. Reality can shift in an instant, and you really can experience anything. And sometimes we think we know what we want from a manifestation perspective. Like we know exactly what we want to manifest, but really it's just the feeling that we're trying to receive. And you can receive that through the visualization. But sometimes you think you know what's going to give you that feeling, but it's not what's actually going to give it to you. There's a disconnect. It's not that you're not receiving it because you're not good enough or you're not worthy. It's like you're not receiving it because it doesn't match the feeling of what you're actually wishing for. I talked about relationships so much on this podcast, but for the longest time, that was like my number one thing that I wanted to manifest. I wanted a boyfriend. I wanted a partner. I wanted a husband. I wanted all the things. Like I just wanted that from the time that I was so young. That was like my earliest desire that I remember having, and part of this was due to trauma. My parents have been divorced since I've been 3, so for me that was a really deeply ingrained desire for partnership and for love. And that was the area of my life I struggled the most, was because number one, I held it on a pedestal, but number two, thought that by manifesting it, I was going to release all these feelings of unworthiness, of being unlovable, of whatever, insert the blank here. But the point of saying this is that to actually receive those feelings, it required being single for a really long time. I don't want to reinforce that's always going to be the case or that you can't have a partner and heal these things within yourself. But for me, it was necessary because I had so many limiting beliefs that I had to heal on my own before I could come into partnership and actually have it be genuine. And I thought that by getting into a relationship, it would heal all of those feelings of inadequacy within me, but it wasn't until I healed those feelings of inadequacy that I was able to become a vibrational match for partnership. I think that when we look back on our past, we see that it was all perfect. It all was guiding us to exactly where we were always meant to be. I recorded that initial podcast episode, but I feel like in the back of my mind, I knew nobody was going to hear it, so it felt safe to share. When I made this video, because of the place that it was coming from, I knew people were going to see it, especially because of the way that my videos have been going. I've just been getting better at content creation, better at creating content that people find interesting, compelling, informative. And I knew people were going to see it. And I had to really sit and be okay with sharing it, and I had to sit and be okay with being misunderstood, and I had to sit and be okay with people commenting things about like just completely misrepresenting who I am, and understanding that the reason that this was meant to be shared was bigger than me. The other message that really came through this week was just anything that you think that you're creating in the future, you're actually able to create in the now. You have the desire of it from an unhealed perspective because you perceive lack, like it's not here, so you want it. But basically, you just want more of it. It already exists in your reality, and you're simply calling more of it into your experience. Everything that you think that you want in the future, you can create more of in the present moment. And you only want it because you perceive lack in the present, but in reality, it already exists in your reality. Otherwise, you wouldn't even have awareness of it. You wouldn't want something that doesn't exist. You want something, you just perceive that you don't have enough of it. So when you're manifesting, a lot of times it's like you want more of something. So how do you create more of something? You focus on where it already exists within your life. If you want more love, you focus on where you're already receiving love, and you start to pour into that, and you water it and you watch it grow. You want more abundance, you start to focus on all the areas where you already have abundance. It really is working with what you already have and celebrating what you already have that represents this future desire. I've just practiced doing this, and it's so fulfilling and rewarding, and everything is a blessing, and everything deserves to be celebrated, and that we're always exactly where we're meant to be. And it can feel like it takes so much time for things to unfold, or wish that we were further along, but there's going to be a future version of you that misses where you're at right now. And when you realize that you're just desiring more of what you already have, it allows you to release the pressure and embrace where you're at, and you stop trying to rush. You stop trying to force. You stop wishing you were somewhere else, denying your reality, and you become more present to everything that is, and you become more present to all the abundance that does exist around you. I did a meditation a few years ago, and it was this future self meditation, and you sit across from an empty chair and you invite in a future version of yourself, and you have a conversation with them. And I'll never forget that in the meditation, the older version of me, as I was asking her all these things and trying to figure out like how to manifest everything I wanted, she just said to me, "You better appreciate that little cat beside you," talking about Miko. And it was true. It was true. Or she was just telling me to appreciate the time that I had with him. And I did a quantum leap meditation today, and I saw my life, and I just saw myself receiving all the things that I wanted, and I felt it. And I just started to see like the progression of life passing, and I just thought about death, my own, but also like thinking about the idea that none of us are here forever, and that all of us die at some point. And just thinking about how grateful I am every day that I get to talk to my parents. This was in this book, Callings, that I've been reading too, but talking about how every time he says goodbye to his wife, he's always just like fully present, because he's like, this could be the last time I ever see you. And I know that's really sad to bring up and to think about, but when you really approach your life as if none of it's promised, none of it's guaranteed, and you really truly appreciate every interaction and every moment, and you allow yourself to be not from this place where you're like holding on through scarcity, but through this place of you're able to perceive everything as abundance, and you're able to appreciate your life exactly as it is, because you never know when or if things are going to change. And I think about, even after thinking about this, and even after doing the meditation today, I just called my mom, and she was being so annoying. She's sick, and she's like, and I did all this, and I loved arguing with her. And I think about the times in my life that I wished away, like the time that I lived with my dad, the time that I lived with my mom, where it was like this path of following my heart. It hurt my ego so much to go from the West Village, having everything I wanted, to moving in with my mom and living in Chicago and having everything that I wanted, and moving in with my dad. But when I look back on my life as a whole, those are experiences that, from a higher perspective, I will be so grateful that I got to have. It's not common for people my age to get to spend this much time with their parents, a meaningful quality time. And I just think about how grateful I am that they've given me the opportunities that they've had and that they've supported me the way that they have. But that's truly what abundance is. And when you follow your heart and you do these callings, these things that just feel like they are looking to flow through you, like life is looking to use you as a vessel to deliver messages to people who need them the most. When you really look at it that way, you stop worrying so much about people who don't get it, because it's not your job to convince them. It's not your job to engage with them. It's not your job to convince them. And, you know, when I share my life, I want someone who feels lost to feel less alone. I want someone who feels like they made a wrong choice and are at rock bottom to know that's a launching off point. I want someone who feels like it's been taking forever to manifest what they want to actually believe that right now is a new starting point. I want someone to use my planner and actually believe what they're writing down, and to actually believe that everything that they want can exist, and to believe that no dream is too big or too ridiculous or too out of reach. And I want them to be able to actually progress in what they're creating and to want to manifest different things. I've had huge shifts lately, and if I really had to break down like what I think has been causing those, I think I talked about that in the last episode about like the subconscious work that I've been doing, but really just embracing this present moment. The other thing that I really have to say is just truly choosing to believe that every single day has the potential and the capacity to be the best day of your life. First thing when I wake up, when I put on music and I start dancing, even when I'm like the last thing that I want to do, it really makes my day better, to the point where my friends and I sing each other songs, to the point where it's this continual reminder that every day does have the potential to be truly the best day of your life, and that you already have everything that you need to create where you're going. You need way less than you think that you do. And if you have this desire in your heart, like you have everything you need to create it. Man, there's going to be some stories I really have to share with you later on, like for sure, about how you can really create. But I don't know. I went and I got groceries this morning, and I just thought about how grateful I was again. And I just thought about what a pleasure it is to be here. What a pleasure it is to be alive. What a pleasure it is to be able to show up as whoever we want to be. And anytime you feel lost, you can always choose again. Every moment's a fresh start. So with that, if you're catching this in real time, you can still access Quantum Calendar while it's still free. If not, I'm going to have a link where you can purchase it. And we're going to be rolling into a new era. And I just really wanted to share this message with you. I really wanted to share creating content that, I don't know. And I just want to say, like, I still have one-on-one spots open. I'll include a link to the calls below. Still have specials specifically. If you sign up for a year, you'll get 2 months free. But if you want 2026 to be the best year of your life, and you don't want to just say that, you don't want to be like listening to this in a year, like, okay, well, you said this 2023, you said this blah, 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 blah. All that matters is the now. And if you're right here, right now, and you're feeling drawn to this and you're feeling called, I just invite you to close your eyes, or whatever you're doing. Like, just kind of like ground and become more present. Truly thank yourself for being here. Truly receive the words of knowing that you're exactly where you're meant to be. You've done enough. You are enough. You get to enjoy where you're at, but you also get to call in more of what makes you feel the most you. More of things that make you feel really good. More surprises, more excitement. You can create anything that you set your mind to, anything you set your heart to. You deserve all the best things that this world has to offer. The world truly is a better place because of you being in it. If there's anything that you need more of in this moment, more direction, more clarity, more confidence, just call it in. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes. So I hope that helps you. I love you. I love this episode. I'll include links in the show notes, but yeah, definitely, I'm really happy you're here. I would love to serve you if you are looking for a coach. Like I said, we do the energetics, we do the somatics, we do the rewiring. It's just my goal to help you show up as who you've always been meant to be, to make that the easiest thing in the world, to make being yourself second nature, and to allow you to just be fully present and appreciative of what is. And it sounds so simple because it is, but a lot of times there's things that are getting in our way. So we just kind of help to clear that all out, and you'll be surprised how quickly things shift. Let me tell you. So I love you. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode of Princess Uninterrupted, the podcast. If you loved this episode, share it with your best friend, and make sure to like, share, subscribe, all of the things. I'm Allison Ziggy, and I'll catch you for the next one.